Awesome. Gonna do a bit of a mic check. Good. Can you hear me? Is this okay? Okay, sweet. Woo. Okay, cozy session today. And a really interesting topic, how to master innovation. So we kept joking that clearly this is a very specific, very focused topic that we're tackling. But seriously, this is a very broad topic, so there's gonna be a lot of things we're gonna talk about today. We're gonna try and give lots of examples, and we're gonna try and time box these questions so that we have lots of time at the end for questions and answers. So I'm gonna give you a bit of a bio on our panelists today because, who are these people to talk to us about mastering innovation? So I'm gonna start with Ayush. So Ayush is a product veteran. This is Ayush.
Thank you.
Wave. Is a product veteran with over 10 years of experience working globally in digital products across industries, including retail, banking, travel, insurance, and real estate. Currently, he is leading product development for the customer engagement strategy at Walmart Canada.
Yeah.
And Dan give a little wave, sweet. Dan is a product manager at Spotify, working in core infrastructure on a team that manages all of the compute clusters at Spotify. So he started off his career as an engineer and moved into product about 6 years ago. And then Bill, little wave Bill.
Hey.
Bill is currently a senior growth product manager at Yelp. So lots of Yelpers here today, is Yelpers?
Yeah, we got 3.
He has 9 years of experience in the consumer and SaaS space, including past product management and market strategy roles at Kinaxis, Coca-Cola, and P&G. And my name is Lee. I'm a product manager at Maple, which is Canada's leading virtual care platform, not sometimes as recognizable as a name as some of our other panelists. But I've essentially spent my whole career working in startups, and I was the first product hire at Maple, so oversaw our leading growth through Series A and B funding rounds, and I own our core care delivery. So we're gonna dive into some questions, but before I pose these questions to these guys, we're gonna do a fun show of hands. Do any of you feel like you've mastered innovation? No, safe space, it's okay. Does anyone feel like they've mastered innovation? Okay, so we have 0 hands. To you guys, do you feel like you've mastered innovation? We're gonna start with Ayush.
Awesome. So I'm the one who's opening it. Okay, cool. So I don't think so. There is something which is called mastering innovation. It's more of a process. It's not a destination, it's a journey, right? Innovation is a mindset. So you have to kind of keep at it, keep on iterating it, and would I call it have somebody master innovation? In my opinion, that would not be something that somebody can do. So it's more of like process, keep on continuously learning it. And I can cite very good examples here, like Apple was the one, it launched in its own phone, people said, wow, that's innovation. If I ask somebody, how is Apple 14, would you call it innovation something truly different than what you're already using it? Or would you call something new, or were you expecting more, right? Let me put it this way. So it's not like one step and done thing. It's like how you keep a tab on the needs, customer needs, and keep at it to kind of deliver the end outcome in a new way which customers are also not expecting. So that would be my response to that.
Awesome. So Dan, would you agree?
Yeah, for sure. I think what is it? It's like the only thing I know is that I know nothing, right? And I think that applies to mastery of anything, right? You just unlock the next level, right? So you get to a certain point, and then you learn things that you don't know, and then you have to learn those, and then you get to the next level. So yeah, I think in terms of mastering innovation or anything in general, I think you just find more opportunities to learn more about a thing. I think the Dunning-Kruger is in full effect there, where you don't know what you don't know, and it's when you brush up against those limits that you find something else that you have to learn. So I agree. Long story long.
Bill?
Yeah, I agree, but I want to add a couple of points. So I think mastering innovation really can be broken down to 2 aspects, right? One is the want to innovate as an organization, like how much appetite do we want to take? Does the senior leadership have have basically allocated funding, teams investments toward innovation in their overall portfolio? But also the other aspect is how to innovate, which includes kind of building the right muscles to innovate. And you really need to have a broad cross-functional capability in an organization all the way from consumer research, quant systems platforms, all the way to like data science analytics, engineering capabilities as well to really innovate and build new features and products. And these are not easy things to have, especially as a mature organization. A lot of tendency of the org tend to evolve toward more optimization. So being able to really getting that alignment to make the organization want to innovate, especially in a climate like today where the economy is tanking. How do we make sure that we're keeping up the short-term metrics while balancing out the long-term outlook and building the how to innovate muscle in the organization? So yeah, short answer is no, but there's a lot of nuances. So thanks.
I should have had a question of how to innovate in the face of a looming recession, but I think that's maybe for a later time. But what I really enjoyed there was you kind of spoke about innovation from an organization level, and both of you talked about it kind of from a personal level.
Yeah.
And so this next question is mainly from an organization level because Spotify, Yelp, Walmart, quite large. What are the main obstacles to innovation in your own organizations? We're not going to rat on you to the CPOs, but we'd love to hear about your obstacles to innovation. We'll go, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a company gets larger and larger, these kind of, it does get harder to innovate, right? You move away from being able to work through a given idea. In the case of a startup, right, you have the kind of the innovation engine is like how you survive. So in a bigger company, you have to kind of find other drivers of innovation. I think it needs to be a lot more intentional than, the need to survive, right? I think like HP back in the day, for example, needed 50% of their revenue to come from products that were products or services invented in the past 3 years. So things like that to kind of drive innovation forward in these large organizations. I think there's different ways that big companies can innovate, via R&D or like Skunkworks, or like even some companies innovate via acquisition, for example. But yeah, I think I think it's, it might tie into a later question, but like innovation is the key driver of kind of your economic performance as a company. So I think it's really important to be always keep that in the crosshairs. Yeah.
So is that how you would define innovation as a key driver?
I think innovation for me, what I like the best is like ideas applied successfully is like what innovation is, right? I don't think it necessarily needs to be new ideas. It could be old ideas that are applied in a kind of different time frame. For example, electric cars, where there was a big initiative in the 90s, right, with electric cars. It just wasn't the right time because of the infrastructure, for example. So it doesn't necessarily need to be new ideas all the time. It can be old ideas that are applied at a different time. But I think it's really that kind of like ideas applied successfully. And we can unpack the, applied and successfully parts. But yeah, I think to me, that's kind of what the definition or what innovation is. So.
Great. Walmart, mega company. How do you innovate?
So I think between a small and a large organization, it's very, very different. So I'll be speaking more from Walmart perspective, as you said. So it's all about resource allocation. So Walmart, for example, is doing a lot of things, right, globally. Now, we have X amount of dollars. So how much of that would somebody wants to put their neck out that they're gonna put into the new initiatives, right? How much is somebody gonna push that those dollars spent should come out in terms of X amount of revenue or other types of digital engagement or any of those KPIs you can think of, right? So if you have to talk about what prevents innovation is somebody ready to stick their neck out and take those hard decisions and say, I need to put in this much money for that kind of work. That sometimes prevents. Who has that decision-making capability to do that? And secondly, as my friend correctly pointed out, processes. While they are a necessary evil for a large organization, right? You need processes, otherwise the machinery will just fall down. But those processes themselves sometimes prevent you to go out of the way and do something which nobody else is thinking of. It's people say it's bottom up or top down. You can go either ways, but I think for larger organizations, it's more top down. Some executives need to think about where to put those dollars in because they are at a disproportionate advantageous position to take those calls. Somebody who's at the bottom level will not be able to say, I need to put in X million dollars into this kind of a project, right? So in a larger organization, generally, I have noticed, my belief is it's top down. They see what's new is coming in, where Walmart needs to be after 10 years. Nothing happens in a couple of months. So they have to have a vision, they have to have a plan, and process needs to support that kind of innovation. So that would be my way to see how that process, how that thought, how that aspiration, how that motivation gets converted into an established process and get delivered in. For larger organization, that's what I would say they need to do it.
So you would say that innovation-focused senior leadership can make or break how
Yes.
it trickles down. Have you ever
Absolutely.
experienced that personally?
So in Walmart, where I'm working in, I actually am a part of that team which we call Revolution inside Walmart. So Walmart is evolution and revolution. You will see two key themes coming out of where people work in. So I'm in Revolution team. So what that means is we see what new needs to be developed and then we hand it over to the evolution teams. So yes, I see there's a huge focus in Walmart where they want to try new things. There's a huge focus and outcomes that are dependent on the new things that we want to do in the market. Now, the definition of new can definitely be challenged. Would you call it real innovation? Would you call it new product, new process, new customer experience? Of course, those are something we need to talk about, but I absolutely agree that Walmart is very, very innovation centric.
Awesome. Bill, you want to take us home with some obstacles in your organization?
No, I agree. So basically, I think senior leadership alignment is definitely huge, especially for kind of more radical innovations where it's a multi-year effort. And without their support, it's really hard to get a team, get the funding, to have the resources to work on that over the long term. And as well as getting alignment that we may not get a metric delivered like in the quarter, right? A challenge innovation is going to take potentially years. And then, in terms of the other obstacles, I think I mentioned that the different muscles of the team. So really having the right capabilities, like the right people in the organization that have the ability to innovate and push forward, not just from a product perspective, right, but even from analytics, from a data, from a research perspective. What's the best way to support the whole company? So it's really a company focus, not just a product management focus.
Absolutely, and product-led companies obviously is what we're here for. I'm a little biased because Maple is much smaller than all of your organizations, and I even saw the difference between after our Series A and Series B funding rounds, how much airspace we had for innovation. Because I remember staring at a whiteboard of like, we could build any of these things, who wants to submit ideas, let's get this off the ground, to today where we have a massive backlog and very serious roadmaps with a lot of external constraints. And as we grow, and we're not even that big, we're 150. So that's why I was really interested in hearing your perspectives. So almost like the antithesis of that, how do you overcome these obstacles and create an environment that fosters innovation in your team, in your wider organization, not just product team, but how do you foster innovation on a wider organization scale? Who haven't I start with?
I can go
Yeah,
first.
go
Yeah,
ahead.
sure. So how do we actually foster innovation in organization? I think after the company is aligned at least on a vision, I think this is where actually there's a lot of power to democratize innovation sourcing from the company itself. Obviously we as product managers we use qualitative and quantitative research, putting a close pulse with our consumers to really understand the problem solution space. But as well, there's a lot of power to get the innovation ideas from outside the product team. So, like what I have done, for example, in the past is essentially create like how might we based on consumer studies, and then host innovation sessions with basically cross-functional teams, engineering, marketing, product, etc., and really kind of source ideas to solve these problems our consumers are facing, and in really innovative ways. And I think there are different like processes that you can create to sustain this kind of innovation going forward, rather than and having a more having the whole process from up funnel all the way to execution. I think is really important. So
Not to put you on the spot, but can you name an example of an idea that came from those cross-functional sessions that were facilitated? Like any one mind-blowing idea that came out from those sessions? It's okay if it's mind-blowing for you and not for the rest of us, but.
yeah, I don't think I can share the specific
fair.
example because it's not out yet in the market, but I will. Maybe other folks can share.
Dan, what about you? How do you foster an environment of innovation?
Yeah, I mean, we work in a very different way from Walmart, where the kind of the ideas come from the bottom up. Everything is bottom up. As an example, I work across a couple of teams. One uses Jira, the other one doesn't. The choices of what your tooling, your processes, what you want to do is completely up to the teams. So I think for us, or for me in particular, culture is actually a really, really strong driver for innovation. I think fostering, teams that it's okay to fail, right? Teams where, the experimentation is key, and that mindset of let's try this and see what happens. Having really empowered product teams instead of, the kind of delivery or feature teams. And just making sure that, for us anyway, the ideas come from the bottom up. So there are priorities from the top down, but a lot of times what gets set on the priorities list as a company-wide comes from the bottom up. The work comes from the people who are closest to it, or the ideas come from the people who are closest to the work. So for us, it really is about culture, right? Diversity of ideas, different kinds of different perspectives across a team or across a business unit. So for us, a lot of the ideas are kind of a lot of the innovation comes because there's a strong culture of open-mindedness, tolerance, and inclusion, and appetite for pushing the boundary at the kind of the team level. So it's a little bit different than I think a top-down type of organization. And so for us, innovation can come from anywhere. So I could have a great idea. If it really is a great idea, it could become an initiative for the entire company. So that's kind of the way. That's the way that we work, and that's just kind of I think that kind of attitude and atmosphere is really key.
So can we thank you for Spotify Wrapped, or?
No, I don't work on Spotify Wrapped, but it did launch today. So if you haven't, I do know that, and I can say that. So
don't all check your phones. But
Yeah,
maybe
it's out
after.
today at 9 a.m. So yeah.
Awesome. Ayush, we'll end with
Yes, so probably I'll take this in two parts. The first one is the process innovation. So everybody needs to have an autonomy to kind of do what they think and do their job better, faster, and as Dan mentioned, they should have that kind of a safe zone that they can go in and talk to people. On the other hand, McKinsey very famously uses a term called green box ideas. So what that means is that every company needs to set aside some kind of revenue that should be focused purely on innovation. And it's not just setting aside, right? Setting up the entire flow from end to end, which Bill, you were kind of alluding to. So I think that is super important. So if I have to say how to foster innovation, how are we keeping that kind of a set outcome coming out of that green box initiative? And you don't even need to know what those initiatives would be. Keep aside that kind of money. There are a lot of ideas, as Dan mentioned, that are coming up from all around the company. But some decision makers need to put down, say that, I need to take these out of 100 ideas, 3 ideas we are going ahead with, and then what it means for company down the year. As long as that inspiration, that motivation is shared and digested by every team member, converted into a process-driven approach, you'll see the results. Especially this is more, I think, true for larger organizations. Because small organizations, I have felt when I worked with one, would be more like product-driven innovation, truly new technologies, new things. But for larger, I think making something happen from top to bottom itself is an innovation. So that would be our.
I like that. Like actually getting something off the ground really does require
Yes.
innovation. I'll give an example from Maple, which large organizations might look at me and say that's not going to last very long. But everyone in our organization, we are empowering them to be a product owner. We don't actually have product owners as a title, but we want everyone to feel responsible for the product. Not long ago, and maybe still now, not a lot of people knew what Maple was, what we did, and so we were like, how can we get ourselves to the next phase? And so we all have this day, we landed on the name Maple Labs Day, but every single department just has a free time day in which at the end of the day they present a project that they think contributes to innovation in customer support, in product engineering. It's a little easier, but for these other departments it's a lot more discreet, and it's developing these amazing ideas that are just like blue sky and really showing like how much people care about our organization. And then we like vote on them and we help make them get to reality. So that's really fascinating because you just see how much people care about it. Yeah. And then we're also able to take these multi-perspective ideas and get it off the ground. Yeah. Now I'm going to ask a question. It's kind of a doozy, and it might seem very wide. We're going to get a bit more specific in a bit, but why does innovation even matter? Why should you care about innovation? Why should your senior leadership team care about innovation? Why does innovation matter? Whoever wants to go first.
I can go. Yeah. So why does innovation matter, right? Like if we think about a company, what is a company? We're offering a number of products, and each product sit essentially in the hyperspace of a solution, and a hyperspace of essentially a problem and solution space. And right now, each company has their specific spot or multiple spots in that graph. They may target multiple consumers, for example. And in terms of like why do we innovate, right? I think innovation is intended for you to either get your company to more areas of this hypergraph, and essentially be able to offer solutions that are that can essentially grow not just a company itself, but actually bring the value to to your consumers. And in terms of like obviously in the tech world, right? Like we've seen a lot of disruptions. Like there's disruptive innovation, and then there's more kind of evolutionary innovation. I think evolutionary innovation, obviously, it helps a company to improve their metrics in the shorter term, making their shareholders happy, etc. And then the disruptive innovations are the ones that can really change the game and change everyone's position in that problem solution graph. So if you don't innovate, then by definition you will be you will be going toward a suboptimal point in that graph.
So it's like a do or die, innovate or die.
It can be sometimes it can be a slow death, but like eventually, think about like what companies existed 100 years ago, right? Not too many. I think basically 99.9% of the companies have died.
Brooks Brothers.
Yeah. Yes.
HBC.
Yeah, exactly. I was
This
going
is
to say
Brooks Brothers,
maybe
right?
Walmart.
Not sponsored.
Walmart. What about you?
Sorry, can you get the question again, please?
Why does innovation matter?
Got it. So, see, customer needs are ever evolving. Would you say the world's first Rolls-Royce that was launched in 1908, does that still solve your purpose? I don't think so. But that was an innovation back then. And to your example, 100-year-old company, right? Do they still exist or not? If you will not innovate, customers will go, okay, I used it, it's amazing, but what next? Now my need is something else. You use Nokia, right? Do you use Nokia now? I don't know how many people use it or not. So what I'm trying to say is that if somebody has to keep a tab on, because companies have to keep a tab on customers' need. Customers also don't know most of the times how they're gonna solve their need. All they know is they have need, right? For example, cell phones. they need to communicate, they need to stay in touch with someone. Nowadays, we see phones as, oh, wow, that's amazing, that's innovation. Had you shown me that 30 years ago, that was like, wow, it's futuristic. Now what I say, no, I don't need it. I need something like who can read my mind. I don't need to carry this bulky device with me all the time, right? I need something new. So if a company like Apple or Samsung, if they're not thinking about that already, I would be surprised. So would you call that innovation? Yes, I would want to say that. So how a company is thinking many years ahead, how is the customer need is evolving, how are they going to meet that need is super critical. If they don't do that, somebody else is going to come in. Maple is going to come in and steal away all the healthcare assets of Canada, right? So how are the competitors thinking? How is TELUS thinking about their healthcare architecture, right? So that's what I'm talking about. So people, companies, and executives need to have a vision. That's why executives are there, so that they can plan ahead, they can create those programs, those ideations, and actually turn something out. So that's why I think to your point, it's a do or die. You don't do it, you'll cease to exist.
We're not going to target anyone who still has a Nokia in the audience. Come up
Yes.
after and tell them what you think.
Yes.
So, what do you think? Why does innovation matter?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. I think it's, as a big company, I think it's really easy to get caught in like the innovator's dilemma where you're listening too closely to customers. So, it's that like new idea or ideas applied successfully, right? Part of being a product manager is knowing what those ideas are, right? So most of us are in technology, knowing what the next technology ideas are and how we might be able to apply those to solve the business problems or the problems that we're working on. I think it's really important to know kind of what those are, so that you can continue to push to the, adding to the points that have already been made. So yeah, if we think about companies that were innovative and no longer are, I think it's somewhere along the line where they over-optimized for something that wasn't, maybe they got caught in an innovator's dilemma somewhere and had their lunch eaten by a startup or something. But I think you always have to keep an eye on what's coming next. I think that's part of what your job is as a product manager. So yeah.
So there's a lot of looking to the future here, and I didn't write this question down and I gave you no heads up whatsoever, but there's going to be a talk this afternoon on tech debt. And what I would be interested in is how do you motivate and sell your stakeholders on working on innovative projects when you have a massive backlog of requests from the sales team, a looming tech debt pile that's about to fall over? How do you convince folks that this is what you should be working on in the face of those?
I can take that probably.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's from a product perspective, prioritization is a very ruthless activity. And you need to cut sometimes your key projects, to solve some kind of urgent needs. How many times we have been in a room and say, no, put that in a backlog, it is not urgent, and we'll put it to it later, right? Sometimes it can be tech debt. But then it comes a situation that you cannot launch a new product because your old architecture is not allowing you to. So what I would say is somebody with a vision and an alignment with all the key stakeholders have to say, what is priority right now? Where is company doing? In the next couple of years, what is the kind of architecture we have to maintain? So that prioritization activity has to be ruthless, and somebody has to take those hard calls. We're not doing this, we're doing this. You cannot drop the ball on either. You have to keep on improving your tech architecture. You have to keep on innovating. So that's why it's important to say, what are the big bets we're going to take in a certain timed environment so that they can deliver something out. Otherwise, it will be always ever going thing and you'll not be able to get something out. So you have to break into smaller chunks, digestible chunks, and outcomes that you can live up to.
So time-boxed investments into innovation where you can prove it's worth it.
Yes.
I mean, to me, like tech debt is risk, right? Like it's just your appetite for managing risk. So if you, for example, you have to offset what you're learning with the risk that you're accumulating. So as you're, if you're going 0 to 1, for example, maybe accumulating some risk in the context of tech debt is fine. But it depends, when you're going to market, potentially after you get to 1 or you have product market fit, then you need to pay down that risk because it's not as tolerable. So it's a balance of factors. To me, for example, working in a company that did very stringent test-driven development, for example, going 0 to 1, put that aside to make sure that we were able to validate the product idea that we were working through. So I think as it relates to innovation, it's just about your appetite for risk, and particularly for tech debt. So yeah, I think Bill's point earlier was around these kind of paradigm shifts of innovative ideas versus iterative ideas or iterative innovation. And I think you need to kind of offset that with like the risk of accumulating tech debt, for example, or other things, right? Like you have known unknowns that you purposely don't think about in order to move forward and maybe finding product market fit in something else. So yeah, it's mainly just about your appetite for risk is the way that I see things.
So Bill, how does your team find that balance?
No, I mean, similar to kind of what Dan and Ayush said, essentially, I think basically the vision for the future can also can help you to prioritize like what is crucial for your next innovation and what could be deprecated potentially, right? As you move onto the new area, and what the implications will have on which tech debt is more valuable to work on in basically at the same time as the other innovations that you're working on. In a smaller startup, like I've also definitely been in a lot of those conversations in the past. Tend to be a little bit more challenging. Like sometimes it's really sometimes it's like a prioritization between a feature that a lot of consumers have asked for, and something to make sure that your companies does not have like service breakdown like for your existing consumers, and those it's a really tough process, especially for a startup where like the engineers are literally working on all of those aspects. But yeah, I think it's a really fine balance. I think to do what's absolutely necessary and what's important for future innovation and then focus on those tech debt, but try to deprioritize the other ones that you can still take on the risk in the future as you're maneuvering in the problem solution fit space.
Yeah, so towing the line with danger a little bit.
Yeah.
We're going to get a bit more tactical because I know there's a lot of folks in the audience who work in product and are really trying to bring innovative ideas into their team and their organization. You kind of already touched on this on your cross-functional team ideas, but how do you source innovative ideas from your organization, from folks outside of the product team?
I can take that. You want to take that?
I mean, I talked about it before, right? I think a lot of the ideas come from the bottom, the people closest to the work. The good, the great, the best ideas bubble up. And it's at that point that people make decisions to invest in them. But yeah, so I mean, for us, it really is about anybody with an idea, right? If it's a great idea, I think it'll have legs as long as the person is pushing it along. So yeah, I mean, it's really, like I said it before, but it's really about culture, right? Ensuring that people have the space, have the ability, have the the initiative to push those ideas along. I think is really important. So yeah, that's for me what's most important is culture.
Is there a formal framework at Spotify to collect these ideas from everyone? Or like the Netflix culture?
Yeah, not particularly. I think it just goes back to the kind of the culture of the company, of like people doing the work. If I have a great idea for I don't know, adopting like large language models in this specific area, even if I don't work on that team, I can run with that idea, and that's okay. So yeah, that's just kind of that's the way it works, I guess. I don't know. There's no specific framework. It's just, yeah, how it goes.
So it kind of relies on extroverts and people who are very confident with that idea.
I mean, extroverts is interesting, but I mean, I think if it's your idea, you tend to be a little bit closer to it, right? I think being a PM, particularly in the 0 to 1 space, you have to have your look at things with a little bit of an existential view. But if it's your idea, you're more likely to push it along. For example, if I had a great idea for something, I'd be more likely to push it along. I think tenacity in the face of adversity is very important. So having one person say no to your idea is, it sucks, but ideas are like 1%, 99% perspiration in terms of success, right? So yeah, that's kind of the way it goes.
Awesome. Ayush, what about you?
So sourcing ideas, and especially outside the product realm, for larger organizations, there's so much research, there's so much data that we have. Would I want to call it data lake? No, there are data swamps. People are just swimming in that and not doing anything with that. So I would say it's all there. Like somebody has to make sense out of, do 2 + 2 = 4. It's easier said than done. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that it's right there. Ideas are flowing around and somebody just have to act on those. But there is so much research that happens, and somebody has to take initiatives on what that research means for the customer to really turn into something actionable, something tangible that customers would want. So, and this doesn't mean that it is limited to the product teams, right? So much communication happens. Devil's in the details. When we are talking to customers, what is it that they are looking for? When we are asking them the questions, did you like the product or not? Is this the UI that works for you or not, right? They sometimes give their answers, but the skill is that, which we call service design, business design, whatever you want to call it, but the skill is that to uncover what they're really looking for, right? And those generally tend to convert into ideas, and you need to have a proper sandbox, right? Okay, this is an idea. What do we need to do about it? People should feel free. It should be an awarding journey as well. That how we are motivating people, because not everybody might be extrovert or motivated, driven by sheer customer experience, but how we can make it rewarding for our employees as well to come forth, use an existing running machine of a sandbox where they can come in, put in some ideas, do quick testing. There is so much tools like usertesting.com and all those things that customers can use and test out quick and dirty ways. So I think establishing that is important, and making sure we're not letting go of any of those crucial research and data points go down the drain, and we leverage those to convert those into ideas. I know, as I said, I know it's easier said than done, but making sense out of the research and data is something I would focus more on.
I was going to start a drinking game for how many times we said user testing this panel, but I think that was the first time. What I'm going to ask is that we take 30 seconds each and just do a brief summary of what you want people to take away from this. It's such a broad topic. We've touched on a lot of things today, but just a quick summary of, how to master innovation, what people should take away from this, and then we'll open up to questions.
Yeah. I think the 30-second summary for the panel today. I mean, I can't speak.
I know it's tight.
I can't speak for everyone, but in my opinion, I think it's like every organization is a little bit different in terms of where you are with the appetite for innovation, as well as the capabilities to execute innovation. So I think for all of you is to think about your organization, where I guess like from both of these aspects, like what is a bigger opportunity to, like what's a bigger gap to address, so that you can actually make your organization an efficient cyborg essentially, right? It's a machine and humans to deliver on innovations for your consumers.
Cool. Dan?
Yeah, 30 seconds is tough. I'm just glad I didn't have to go first. But yeah, I mean, I think the takeaway is that you can't really ever master innovation, which sounds like a cop-out, but you need to keep pushing, right? There's always a new idea, there's always something else. And so, to me, it goes back to that, like, ideas applied successfully. So finding those new ideas, whether they're new or old, and finding avenues to, apply them successfully, I think is what, to me, is very important about continuing to innovate. And you need to find where the line is and then take a step past it, basically.
Great. Ayush?
What I would say is aspire. That's the most important thing. You should always aim and keep high targets that you want to do something by certain times. decision making and resource allocation. If you can take these things away and whatever you guys are doing, put these themes in your role, you will. I have personally felt that it made a lot of change, but do those decision making and move ahead and be ready for a change. You have to be open to a change. Be ready to fail, that's okay. And if your organizations are not okay with that, you have to kind of foster that kind of environment along, right? Or find a better place to work, I don't know. But change is something that you have to be absolutely okay with.
So we're going to amend the title of the panel to be How to Not Master Innovation, asterisk, but Get Better Over Time. Perfect. Do we have any questions from the audience for any of our panelists? Okay, we have 3. Yeah, well, whoever gets it first.
Thank you for your speeches. Let's say you have the new team, and the team has no habits to push ideas, and you have a task to implement the process of innovation from the scratch. What would you do the first, second, third?
The context of the question is you have a brand new team.
Yeah, let's say it's a new team, and before they had no innovation process, no frameworks, so no process from the bottom. So they received only from the, from their bosses' ideas, and that's all.
Blank slate.
I feel like you're maybe setting them up to fail if you just like put a team out and say like go do something. So I'm not really sure the best way to answer that. I mean, I think like finding there is no perfect framework for innovation, right? To me, it's about the culture and the willingness to experiment and fail. So again, I think if you had a team that was brand new, all new people to the company, and you told them to do something, they would run up against a wall pretty quickly. But I think if you have that kind of the culture of the accepting of being able to experiment and fail on things, at least they would be able to try different things, I suppose. So yeah, that's my cop-out of an answer, I guess.
Yeah, I can add a little bit on that. So I would say that like if you have a team, I'm assuming this team includes kind of different cross-functional folks, like not just engineering and product, but potentially research. Then I think I would start off with kind of like, first of all, like what's the goal of the team? Like what are we trying to deliver against? And also think about like what's a problem space? What's a problem that we want to solve, right, for the consumer? So and then essentially I would go consumer first, figure out like what we want to, like what's a key problem, and then get a team to go through innovation process of ideating, etc., and then validating those ideas with consumers afterwards as well. After you prioritize based on opportunity size, etc., and then I think that can then ensure that at least you're working on something that's valuable for both the company and your consumers. And then yeah, so I mean I think the innovation context is important, that you need to provide like a certain basically a certain framework and a certain space for your team to be most innovative at. Sometimes being too broad doesn't actually help your team, because they can go in all different directions. So focusing their kind of ideas on one problem is a great way to get that going.
Great. We have 2 more questions I saw, so we're going to make sure we can get to those. You will get a chance to jump in.
You touched briefly on the concept of tech debt and how you see it as a risk. I know there's a talk later in the afternoon around that, but I was just curious to take your opinion. Is it owned by engineering or product? Who owns tech debt?
Oh my goodness, who owns tech debt?
Maybe I can take this one. So I don't think so. Either of those teams can independently own it, right? Product is such a multifunctional role, I would want to call it. They're working very closely with engineers and all. They need to know what it is, right? And of course, engineers can make sure that they lay out the lay of the land as clearly as possible, so that decision makers can. It's a collaborative environment. If you say engineering team is going to raise a hand, no, I'm not going to move ahead until this is resolved and I move it. That's not how it would work, right? On the flip side, product cannot say, you're not going to touch it, we'll do something else. That's also not how it's going to work. That decision has to be a combined one. And as I said earlier, like, what is the need in the near future of 1 or 2 years? That is what's going to be deciding those factors. So to answer your question, both those teams, if you're talking strictly about product and engineering in this case, need to present their opinions, need to make sure that all the data points for the correct decision making are laid out so that the group can collectively see whether we should go do this or not. Otherwise, one team is not equipped to take that call on their own, unless something is really falling out of the place, right? It's roof goes down, yes, you have to solve it, right? Otherwise, you can't sit here. So unless that is not the situation, I would want to call it, it's a collective decision, but each team has a responsibility to lay out what it means for the company at that point of time.
I think it's the engineering owns tech debt, if you're strictly talking about tech debt, right? But I think there's other kinds of debt, right? But all of that is owned by the product team, right? So you want to have a cross-functional product balance team, right? For me in particular, I don't work with any designers because the things I work with don't have any front ends, but you want to be on a balanced kind of unit and make decisions as a group, right? So as a PM, I don't ever decide anything on my own, right? I think in terms of accumulating risk, it's a decision that is made as a team, right? So if you're going to go into tech debt in order to solve a problem or get product market fit, that's a decision that you make as a group. But I think that, I'll turn into the worst engineer on the team immediately as soon as I try and talk about anything technical. So I think tech owns tech debt in particular, but I think there's other kinds of debt, right? Not knowing a user or a problem space or missing a persona, for example, or misqualifying your problem or misunderstanding your problem. I think it's a different kind of debt that product managers own. But I think in terms of like tech debt in particular, I think it's engineering.
So we were running so lovely on time before our panel. Do we have time for one more question, or are we cut off? One more? Okay, perfect. That last one, thank you.
Thanks. So I liked how you guys summarized an ideal scenario where you have a successful innovation practice, whether it's top-down or bottom-up. Is there a situation where the organization will never be able to succeed just because fundamentally they're approaching it wrong, whether it's a dysfunctional team, wrong types of personnel, imbalanced teams, that kind of thing? I know Ayush kind of touched on it in his 30-second summary, but is there anything else to add?
I guess it's like what percentage of startups fail, right? So yeah, of course. You can be innovative, but if it's the wrong timing, for example, it's not gonna work. So yes, you can have it doesn't matter if you have top down or bottom up. Sometimes it just doesn't work if it's not the right, for whatever reason, right? There might be macro factors, there might be company factors, I think, but yeah, it's innovate. That's why you can't ever master innovation, because if I've mastered innovation, I would not be here and would have sold all of my startups and be sitting on a beach somewhere. So I'm not, but I don't think it's possible to master innovation. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty as you're innovating.
Can I quickly rephrase? Is there a misunderstanding of what innovation means so people approach it the wrong way?
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
I missed
If
that.
people fundamentally disagree on what innovation is and how that can lead to organizations failing, or I'd say just projects failing in general. We did talk about iterative innovation, which, I love the iPhone example, right? I think that's a really, really good example. I think, but we couldn't even agree on what innovation was. We can't agree that there's one way to master innovation. So there's always going to be situations where we fundamentally disagree on what innovation is. I think it's, again, that whole stakeholder management, and I'm sure we're talking about 50 million times today, but really selling folks on your idea and what innovation is and what it can mean for your company. I think that's where we kind of patch that difference and how we can actually build something that does something. It takes a lot to get it there, though. So I think that ends us for today. Thank you for letting us go a little bit over time. And we really warmed the room for the tech debt panel. I hope everyone's really excited for that one. Thank you.
All right.